everyone for having me. I have been having a fantastic time getting to know some of you today, and I really enjoyed the trivia, and I've been having a very pleasant lunch. And in addition for thanking you for this afternoon, I want to start by saying thank you because as a result of Rotary, that's the reason I got to go to Sweden for a month in the first place. So I want to start by giving a little bit of background. I don't know, let me ask this question. Did this particular Rotary Club get to meet the Rotary Group Study Exchange team from Sweden? Okay, so that gives me a little bit of background. I don't know, I know that I've had the opportunity to speak to several Rotary clubs, and not all the Rotary clubs are familiar with Group Study Exchange. So your district is comprised of what, 51 Rotary clubs? And so the district puts together a team, and I guess it's all decided at the district, I don't know if it's the district meeting once a year or it's the big meeting where everybody gets together. That's when it gets decided, like a year in advance, where the exchange is going to happen and how the two teams from whatever country and the United States are going to switch. So a year and a half ago, the district governor and the other district governor decided it was going to be Sweden and the United States. So this area decided to host a group from Sweden. They came over in they came over in April, and then we left in May. So I did have an opportunity in April to meet the team that came over from Sweden. And also really quickly in terms of group study exchange, the way that Rotary puts this together is they are trying to find young professionals who are ages 25 to 40 and choose a team that will represent Rotary and the United States well. And it's also, at this point, I know it's going through some changes at this time, but it is tailored specifically to the professions of the people who make up the team. So I am a teacher, and the things that I got to do while I was in Sweden, in addition to maybe the group things that we did together, I got to do quite a few things that were tailored specifically to my field in my career. So I got to go to several high schools and speak with administrators, teachers, and students in Sweden. So that was fantastic. And so with this exchange, after our team was put together, there were 3 other team members that were chosen, and then we had a team leader who is a Rotarian. The team members themselves are not permitted to be Rotarians, and they cannot have a parent or grandparent who is a Rotarian as well. So this has been a great way to expose me and my fellow team members to what Rotary is all about and your mission and the philanthropic work that you do. So that has been a pleasure as well to get educated about that. So our team was put together last year. In fact, I believe right about a year ago, this Saturday, I was going to Jacksonville for an interview. And once the team was put together, we had meetings once a month in Jacksonville because our team leader was from Macomb and other group members were from other places as well. And sure enough, April 30th rolled around and off we went to Sweden. So Sweden has 3 different districts. If you imagine the state of California, that's about the size of Sweden. It is, if you divide it then into 3 thirds, the middle third, that middle section is the district that we went to. Stockholm is in the southern part, and in fact, if you read any travel guides or books, anything north of Stockholm is actually considered northern Sweden because the majority of Sweden's population live in Stockholm or south of that, along the coast, which is on the Baltic. So here we are. We get to go to several different cities in Sweden. We started and actually went to the northernmost city, which was called Östersund, and that was really fascinating because here we are in northern Sweden. It's daylight nearly all of the time, and it's freezing. In fact, on May 5th, it was snowing where we were. So that was really fascinating. There are some pictures in the PowerPoint photos that are there that are of us at a moose garden. I don't know if you can even see what they are, but it's snowing, and I know in the very, very last picture there's one of Alan, one of my team members, with some some moose antlers, and that was on that day in May when it was snowing and we were wearing our winter coats and so forth. So those were some of the cultural things that we got to do in addition to the vocational related activities that we did. It is, because of the seasons being so harsh, they do not raise cattle in Sweden. It's very expensive to buy a steak. So they raise things like reindeer and moose, and those are the kinds of things that if I did get to eat that type of meat, that's what I was eating. So that was very fascinating. They eat a lot of fish. And one of the things that I wanted to be sure to talk to you about today is a tradition that Swedes have that I think we should have. And it's called fika. It's F-I-K-A. And this is a phenomenon that I don't know how long it's been around. Everybody does it. It didn't matter what city or what Rotary group we were with or who we were staying with. Everyone did this. And it's a time in the day, usually between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m., sometimes again in the afternoon, say around 3 p.m., where people stop what they're doing at work and they go into their break room, which is equipped with a coffee machine, and they have coffee and coffee cups, and usually now it's pretty fancy schmancy, they have dishwashers and so forth, and they just have a cup of coffee and maybe a pastry for 15 or 20 minutes. And there's none of this business that Americans do where we're drinking our coffee and sending out emails and talking to our families and also trying to grade papers at the same time. None of that multitasking is going on. It's a time for you to chat with your coworkers, it's a time to catch up, it's a time to relax, and then you go back to work and you go about your business. Now, I'm the kind of person who likes coffee. I don't drink it usually in the morning. I don't need it. But I would say that during the month that I was in Sweden, this is separate occasions, not at one time, I had on average 90 cups of coffee. And I'm not kidding you. There was one day where we had 5 different occasions where we had coffee. I mean, they are, here's your fun fact, here's your fun trivia. Sweden is actually the second highest consumer of coffee per capita in the world. And that did not surprise me at all. Does anybody, since we got the trivia, I can't give you anything and I'm not going to take your money, but does anybody know what the #1 country per capita in the world is in terms of coffee consumption? Nope. I heard, nope. I don't think I heard it, and I apologize if I just missed it. It's Finland. So the #1 and #2 consumers of coffee are Scandinavian countries. So I wonder if it has something to do with all that cold, harsh weather or something. But it sort of became a joke as we went along. It was like, do you want another cup of coffee? And we're like, no, really. Our hearts are going to have an issue because it's strong coffee as well. But that was something, I think it's important to bring that up because I think it speaks to how welcoming the Swedish population was. And I realized too, I'm dealing with a very specific group of people. We're dealing specifically with Rotarians, people who already are attracted to this notion of serving others before self. And so that was something that was just such a pleasant experience for me as I was simultaneously going into these other places, these high schools, meeting these kids. And I have to say, as a high school teacher, meeting the high school kids in Sweden, I felt like I was just in a parallel universe. I mean, they're the same. They're exactly the same. Kids are kids and they're wonderful. And it was great to be with them because here I was outside of my own experience, away from my comfort zone and my classroom and my family. And yet I was with these people and I thought, oh gosh, I'm doing the right thing. That was something just on a personal level that I was able to have that sort of experience where I thought I am doing the right thing. If I had to live in Sweden, I'd want to be a teacher, and that was really awesome. In terms of how things are a little bit different there, Swedes do not start school until they are about a year older than they are here in America. So the average Swede will be 6 or 7 years old before they start school. And their high schools do not start at what we call the freshman level. They actually start at the sophomore level. So the last 3 years of high school, they're equivalent to sophomore, junior, and senior year. Their ages 16 through 19. Further, by the time they get to that age of 16, they need to have sort of decided where they're going in life, and their high schools are set up to be more tailored to those specific things. If you're a science-minded person, you're going to go to a school that maybe focuses more heavily on math and science, engineering, and so forth. If you think you're maybe going to become a teacher or a writer, you're going to go to a liberal arts high school. And there are fine arts high schools if you're going to be an artist or a musician and so forth. One little caveat to that, there are 2 high schools in the entire country of Sweden that are devoted to circus performing arts. And I got to go to one of them. And it was that was bizarre. To walk in, it's like you have to take off your shoes before you can go in the room. That's another thing that most Swedes do. You always take your shoes off before you go in because, not in the professional place, but that was something that was frequent in people's homes, to take off your shoes or put on slippers. So you gotta make sure you're not wearing socks with holes in them. And evidently I have a couple pairs that do. So anyway, so I took off my shoes and I walk in, and it's a place where they're all doing gymnastics and they're twisting themselves on these ropes and walking on the high wire. And I thought, this wouldn't fly in an American classroom. The liability on this is crazy. But that was something that was really fascinating. And so since you do have the opportunity, this is more of the socialized aspect of Sweden and socialist, is that these schools are open to anyone. So that the state, the country of Sweden, will pay for this, and they also pay for post-secondary education as well. Having said that, one of the things that we heard multiple times was that the people who are in those positions of education are very disappointed with how few young Swedish people take advantage of their free education to pursue the university degree. And as we saw, because we were in the north, the issue there is a lot of those places, they have farms. Why would I go to the university? I need to work here. Why would I go to the university when I can work in this factory and take care of that kind of labor? Of course, the problem being that those jobs are diminishing, and in terms of looking to the future, I think in a lot of ways, Sweden is dealing with the same issues that as Americans we are. As we try to imagine what does the future look like, how do we create an opportunity for our kids to be able to be prepared for what's going to come down the pipe in the next 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. So those were some very, very fascinating conversations that I was able to have and even participate in as they were talking about their things. They have the same issues too, kids on cell phones. And I will say, just in general terms, I feel like I'm a pretty casual teacher. I want to make sure everybody's in class on time and you're prepared and you have your books and so forth. But I'd like to think of it as being relaxed. I didn't know relaxed until I saw kids with hats on. Some of them got phone calls, went out of the room, went to take their phone call and that just totally blew me away. Further, though, I can see how that culture might be there because those high schools, they're called gymnasiums. They're set up a lot more like a college classroom is. They don't have class like we do. I teach 5 classes a day, 5 days a week. First hour, second hour, third hour, fourth hour, fifth hour, sixth hour. This whole notion of having high school kids go to a first hour, whatever that is on their schedule, and then a second hour every day, 5 days a week does not exist. They may have English on Tuesdays and Thursdays for an hour and a half each day in this building, in this classroom. Which also means that teachers don't have their own classrooms because they're interchanging. Their contact hours are much less, whereas I teach 25 hours a week and then have an hour of prep time and then do my extracurriculars. They have 15 contact hours, and then the remaining 25 hours in a 40-hour work week are taken up doing collaboration with other teachers, research, or grading. I would like to know how they spend their time, because if I had 10 more hours in my work week and also had 10 hours taken away of contact, I can't imagine what my life would look like. And so the other thing too, and I was talking to my own students about this today, that also means that this whole notion, because extracurricular activities so often are not the responsibility of the schools, They would do, you know, that's more privatized for them. They don't have this whole notion of a mascot or team colors and that sort of thing. So that's something that made me very aware in our American culture, how busy we are with, well, Friday you gotta wear your school colors, and tonight's the big game, and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't really exist in that way for them. I'm not saying that they don't have culture, but it's just, that makes it very different. And that made me sort of appreciate what I had, because I just take it for granted. Well, aren't you guys the Tigers? Aren't you guys the Bears? Aren't you the, you know, the Devils? And they're like, what the heck are you talking about? So those were some things about our experiences that I thought that you would enjoy hearing about.